the guy or girl that's judging someone for their wild haircut or the tattoo they got, that energy frequency is the core problem with our world, right? This idea that you should live the way I think you should live. What a weird thing.
Yeah, what a weird thing.
What a weird thing. Your haircut, your dreadlocks have no bearing on my life today.
Right.
So why would I give a fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
I look at them and I always, if they'll engage, I always kind of try to drag them where we're going right now. Like, explain that to me, and that's something we need to get over as a species. We really do. So. We got to let people live their life as they see fit. The only rule is don't hurt others.
Yeah.
That's the only rule.
That's
After that, you can do whatever you want. I mean, this leads into all the talk about transgender and gay and straight and bisexual.
Shit's about to go down.
I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tats with Aaron Della Vedova.
Hello, my friends and neighbors and lovers of the show. Welcome back to Chats and Tats with me, your host, Aaron Della Vedova. I've said this before, and today is a major highlight on this one, but I've been tattooing for 30 years, and I look back on all those years of tattooing, and I wonder, what's the highlight? What's the greatest blessing of that? And my guest today exemplifies that. It's the relationships and the opportunity to hang out with really carefully thought out people that really consider how to guide their life towards fulfillment and success, not just financial success, but success on all levels. And I've been fortunate enough to spend with this gentleman probably over 200 hours alone, hanging out, getting to know each other. It's a rare thing. How often do any of you sit down with people you care about, turn your phone off, and just have a conversation for even an hour? In this unique job or trade I found, I do that for hundreds of hours on occasion with certain people. And some of these people are just outstanding and they become my friends, and it's a blessing. And so for that reason, I really wanted to have him on the show. What can I say about this guest? I mean, he is a hairstylist, and like tattooing, there's a lot of levels to that. I mean, you can just be a tattoo artist, go to work every day, take whatever comes to the door, go home at night. That's at the end of it. For some of us, we really strive to go to the top of that trade. And this gentleman has done just that. Over the last 27 years, he has guided his career in a very productive way, which landed him in a very unique position. He's a lot of things. He's a celebrity hairstylist, you could say. I mean, he's done the Kardashians' hair, Paula Abdul, Quentin Tarantino, just to name a few. He's a global educator in the trade of tattooing. He's a brand ambassador. He is also a creative director. And he owns his own brand in the hair industry. So, he's very successful. And I'm curious to see how he was able to pull all of that off, because it's a very competitive industry and you've got to really have your wits about you, and you've got to do something that the others aren't. And I know a little bit about how he did that, but not really all of it. And I think any of you out there that are artists and creatives could learn a lot from what he's learned through his journey through the hair industry. So with all that being said, please welcome my friend and my guest today, Philip Wolff.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. We were just talking before the show started, and I don't know, we started tattooing roughly 17 years ago. You weren't just starting your career, but you were in the early phases of it, And I did both your rib panels, and then we did your back piece, which, by the way, is still one of my favorite tattoos. It really is. I look at that piece and I'm just like, wow, I tapped into something on that one. It's one of my favorites for sure. So we had all that time together to get to know each other better. And like I said in the introduction, it's just such a blessing to call you a friend and to know you and to hear about your life's exploits to the degree where I'm like, you got to come on the show. Tell others about what it is you've done and what it is you're doing and where you're going. So, with all that being said, tattoo industry is so similar to the hair industry, just in the basics. Like, you have a client, they have a desire to express themselves. You have to really be in tune with them. You have to find their frequency almost and really read that person to figure out what's going to best serve them. How are you going to, help them express themselves in a way that's going to make them fulfilled, right? And you obviously have done that. There's a reason people stand in line to have you touch their hair. But that's where you're at now. I'm kind of curious about how it all started. How do you, where did it begin with your journey into hair? And then after we've covered that, I want to know like what it was like to create the level of success you've created in the hair industry. So
Yeah, no, it's great. First of all, thank you for that kind intro right there. And,
well, it's all true.
And it's I'm honored to be here. I mean, I first of all, I love this whole setup. I love knowing you over the years and how even you have grown and evolved. So it's kind of cool that, to see friends kind of have those dreams and goals, and then years later to see them reach them and even surpass. So that's really cool. Yeah.
My mom, love your mom. I don't know if she'll listen to this episode or not. I don't know if she listens to too many of them, but there's nothing wrong with my mom's life. And she's just an example of many. She just, went to work, got a job, paid the bills, and now she's retired, and that's great. She often worries about me because I'm constantly doing something new. And I'm like, I try to explain to her, like, I'm a creative. Like I'm like a tree. A tree is either growing or dying. They don't sit still.
Right.
And in this line of work, in this trade, and yours too, I believe you have to continue to grow. Like to not be growing is to be dying.
Right.
And to sit still is a form of slow death. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep reinventing. You got to keep going to the next level. It's like that or failure. I don't have the luxury of sitting still. Maybe that's call it an entrepreneur, call it a business owner, call it a tradesman, call it a creative, whatever you want to call it. But in the world we chose, you got to grow. And yeah, you're right. This show's an example of like, what's next? What's next? I'm always thinking what's next. And I think you exemplify that as well in your career. Just want to take a moment to give a huge shout out to my sponsor, sullenclothing.com. Happen to have one of their badass shirts on today. Super high quality, man. You got to check these things out. But if you're a lover of tattoo art and you wear clothes, check out sullenclothing.com. They have some of the top tattooers in the world putting their art on their clothing. Really cool stuff. Hoodies, hats, sweaters. I mean, God, they make pants, jackets, shirts. So please check them out. And to you guys over at Sullen, thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
In the hair industry, we say, evolve or dissolve. It's like one of those things.
Way to put it.
Yeah. And it's true. And I'm constantly met with challenges and this and that. But I think that's kind of what helps me along the way. Because I think a bored me is a dangerous me, right? So I like to be challenged, and obviously every day is something, but I think that it gives me more of a short-term goal or even medium. And obviously we always have the big ones, and that can always disperse into other things as well. But to get to what you were saying, how did it all begin?
Yeah.
Funny enough, with my mom, actually, she did hair and makeup, growing up, but I didn't look at it like a career. I just thought, oh, she does hair and makeup. Cool. That's fine. And she would always say, you would be good at this, And I was like, oh, come on, Mom,
Right.
Fair enough. But I mean, that's not me. Or so I thought. You know how they say sometimes moms know you better than yourself. So that was definitely the case. I definitely tried all sorts of different things, but then I eventually ended up apprenticing because remember the looking in the want ads on the paper and circling with a red Sharpie, the one, the opening. So there was actually an apprenticeship opening because to go to beauty school, first of all, is money. And it took about a year or so, maybe a little less than a year. And I didn't have that kind of time. I needed to get going. I think I was about 20 at the time. So I apprenticed. That way I was able to learn in real time, as well as make very little money, by the way. I'll never forget. It was $187 a week. I just will never forget that. And that was my check.
Very specific number.
Very specific. Yeah. I don't know where the guy came up with that. 187. Oh gosh,
You got to get that tattooed on you.
I know. That's a good idea. So yeah, I started off there, and I started to really understand what the business was right off the jump, because he had about 10 applicants in line. He was the owner, by the way, to this salon. They all graduated from whatever school and they were ready. And I never even went to beauty school. I just literally came off the street, and he thought, this is interesting. I like this. I want to experiment on my abilities to teach. So I'm going to take you on as an apprentice. And I was like, great. So I started, and he says, he thought about it over the weekend. He goes, come in on Monday I came in on Monday and he said, actually, I thought about it over the weekend. You know nothing about this other than maybe your mom did a few, hair and makeup things over the years. He said, look, I'm going to take you to this hair show. It happens to be the weekend of the hair show and today's the last day. I said, sure, let's go. So we hopped in his car, we went, and that's when I kind of understood the other side of things. I mean, there was people on stages, big company, music, actually tattooed people. I felt like, maybe this is where I belong. It was an instant thing.
The aha moment.
The aha moment, right? Because it was like this weird alternative world that I didn't even know existed. So I thought, this is amazing. And he introduced me to all these people who later I realized were legends, but I didn't know at the time. I'm just some young kid. So I started learning over the years, side by side with him. I was him with, I think, a little over a year solid. And then I actually ended up moving to another company in that area.
And this is all up in Los Angeles, right?
No, this was back in Maryland.
Oh.
Maryland and DC, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I lived on the East Coast back then. Yeah, so let me take you way back in the 90s too, by the way. So I did that, and then I moved on to another company. They were based out of London, but they, moved to the U.S. and had many locations. So education is something that they drilled in us, even from my first mentor. He just said, this is what it's about. Like you were saying, keep evolving or really you just kind of fall off the map. Well, he was like, it's the same with this. He goes, you have to constantly learn. But then at a certain point, you have to give back. You have to share what you've learned because we got to keep the next generation going. Of course, he said, none of this probably makes sense to you now, but if you stay long enough, it will. And of course, I did stay long enough. And it did because I came to a situation where I moved to Los Angeles. I gave up a good clientele and I just said, I want to go big. Or at least let's see what happens here. So I went. It was a humbling experience because let me tell you, Los Angeles is a way different. They just do everything different than anywhere else. And especially from the East Coast where I came from, we had structure. We had, this is the program. This is it. You go to LA, they're just like, so how much do you bring in a year? Like, do you want a chair here? And what can you do for me? And I'm like, I'll work hard. They go, yeah, that's not enough. Next, you know what I mean? So you have to really earn your way and learn a new culture of how business runs and how everything runs. There's no shop, well, there might be, but the ones I went to, they don't provide things. You buy everything yourself. You deal with it yourself. So it was very interesting how that worked. But I learned, and I happened to be lucky to be around, always surrounding myself with just excellent artists. A lot of these were from France because the company I worked for was a French company at the time. And then before that was a lot of UK. But just incredible artists. So I would just soak it in from everybody. Boom, boom, boom. And pick up some things, learn along the way, and a lot of trial and error, And then eventually started getting into celebrity work and all that. All of this is very surreal at the time, too. I was just kind of going through the motions. Now, I think what helped me keep the grind was, number one, once I moved from the East Coast, I didn't want to give up and go back home with my tail between my legs. I was determined to do something. So I worked every day, 7 days a week. I worked at barbershop, anything I could do to kind of pay rent. I was living on credit cards. I mean, I was hurting because I came out with a chunk of money thinking, I'm good. And then I wasn't good after 6 months. All that money was gone. And I was like, oh my God. Luckily, I had good credit at the time still at that moment. But that's why credit cards, boom, boom, boom. And it was sad every time I go home with a check and but it just kept me hungry. So I don't know that I had answers. It's not like I was like, I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was determined, but I was open to asking people and taking advice. Even if I didn't think much of it, I just did it. We didn't have the social medias and that whole thing back then. It was just pound the pavement, go out, introduce yourself, be social. I just tell everybody, hey, I'm new in town. I'd go to clubs, I'd go to bars, I'd go to anywhere where I felt I wanted that type of clientele. And I would just go right up to them. And it's funny because especially when it comes to the male-female thing out in public, they just think you're going to hit on them. But the minute you say, oh, I'm a hairstylist, I'm new in town, you have amazing hair, that wall drops. And now it's a more comfortable conversation. Here's my card. I'd love to do it. Come in for free. I just love to do your hair one time, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, it slowly builds from there. So
that's the hustle right there.
Yeah, that's the hustle.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I've read many books on successful people. What separates them? And there's probably a few things, but one of the biggest is just the one book I read called it the stick to it factor, right? It's just consistency.
Right.
This one book I read was studying all these very, very successful people. And when they did the study, they were not just looking at their financial records. They were looking at how healthy is their relationship with their children? How healthy are they physically? They found these folks that were what we would call successful in all those categories. They tried to figure out like what was the common denominator. And, the expectation was, maybe they were born into a family with a lot of connections, or maybe they're better looking than other people, or, if it's a man, they're over 6 feet tall. That's the successful people.
Right.
And after all this research, they really discovered the ones that made it that far were just consistent. They just kept moving. It's just one step in front of the other, one step in front of the other. They add up, 10 years later, it all adds up to some big leap, which seemed day to day like you were getting nothing done. Like you said, like sitting there asking questions, listening to people that at the time you were probably like, this is useless. And some of it probably was. But the fact you would get up the next day, do it again, it adds up, it adds up. So I think that's important, because that is one of the things I wanted to get out of you today was, how did you find this level of success when there's hundreds of thousands of others who did not, and hearing your story, consistency, stick to it, keep moving.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yep. Because then a wave of social media came. I would say I kind of observe, this has kind of been my, my way of life, I guess. I don't know. But I observe first and then I get into it. So, because social media, when it first started blowing, there's random people starting to really get followings, and nobody really knew what it meant back then. It was just kind of interesting that would happen. And I mean, even like 10,000 follow, like if you think about 10,000 people in that's a lot of people. And they're like following this one person, like, why? What is it about this person? And I started noticing it happening with hair. And I sat back going, wow, I wonder what all this is going to do. And it was cool because I'd see very talented people with interesting things from all over the place, all over the world, actually, which was cool. And I kind of was anti. I was like, well, I'm more of a private person. I don't know if I want to. But everyone's like, dude, you got to do it. And so I finally kind of met up with a new group of stylists who moved to town. One actually already moved to town who I work with today. His name's Alfredo Lewis, but we'll get to that part. But we started just making videos. It wasn't about a trend. It wasn't about anything. It was just us doing what we wanted to do. It was that simple. It was a shop on Melrose. And as you know, Melrose Avenue, tons of funky people around. We're like, walked out, literally, we would do this. We'd walk out on the street. Hey, you have cool hair. You want your hair done for free? Sure. Come on in. And we would just do it. It was that simple. We had a barber. We had my friend who did color, Alfredo, and me with cutting and styling. And we would just team up, make fun videos, and then post them. And one time, one of them blew up, and we were like, whoa. And then we were like, maybe we can do that again, And then we just kind of kept doing them, and then that's kind of how it all started.
I was going to get to that because your social media game is strong, but it's interesting to hear it wasn't you started doing it before anyone knew what it could become.
Yeah. And
then you saw, one goes viral and you're like, wait a second here.
Yeah. Like, whoa.
Yeah. And social media, what a phenomenon.
What a phenomenon.
It's so different now though, right? You almost got 1 million followers at this point. So you were able to catch that wave in the beginning and climb steadily to a very strong following. Someone now trying to get where you're at, it's almost impossible just because everyone's on there now.
Right.
Yeah. To be unique on social media. We think about this a lot in the tattoo industry. I don't like it either. I'm anti. I'm still probably.
Right.
I'm like, it pisses me off every time I've got to make a video or my team makes one for my shops or whatever. It's like, why do we have to do this? Why can't we just come in and just do great work? And then they tell people those days are gone.
Yeah.
No one walks into a tattoo shop. Maybe, but basically nobody walks in and says, hey, I heard about you guys. Let me look at the portfolios. Doesn't occur. They open their phone and they follow a bunch of tattoo accounts. And then whoever's popping up on that feed is who they know of. So 2 things are, in my opinion, happening. One, you got to be making content that's extremely new and different and interactive, or a lot of it just pay to play.
Right.
They always wondered when Instagram was going, I'm like, how do these fuckers make any money? But they had a plan the whole time.
Oh, they had it all the time.
Yeah. They're like, it's just like a dope dealer. Like, give them to them free.
Right.
But eventually we'll get them hooked.
Yep.
And then they're going to have to pay if they want some.
Yeah.
So it's extremely daunting for the young person who wants to use that as a marketing tool.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I would say this too. Yes, if you're a newer stylist out there and you're trying to, just build your following, this, that, and the other, it's interesting now because we have multiple platforms now. And for the most part, each one kind of has its own thing, even though it's very similar. I'll give an example. If you're a new stylist trying to start out on Instagram, it's a must do, but it is obviously super saturated. And how do you curate something of your own audience and grow that way? I would say a lot of maybe the younger generation tend to go with TikTok. Now, I'm on TikTok. I'm not really so submersed in it, but I do have one. The guy I work with, Alfredo, he's cracked the code. I mean, he's got like 1.6 million already, and the guy just loves it because obviously he's seeing, feedback and he loves it. He just has something that, he likes to create these little stories, and we do it together on Instagram, but he's really good at it. So that brings sort of a different audience. In one way, it's good. And in other ways, it's very interesting because I feel like if you're younger and you're watching it, like, I don't know if you heard of this guy on TikTok. Well, girls or guys, they end up blowing up overnight for different reasons. Mm-hmm. But they know if they do something that goes ultra viral, all of a sudden you can have 100,000, 500,000, 1 million followers in like a week or just a few days. Mm-hmm. So then it comes difference. Do you have actual followers, or do you just have viewers that just want to see?
But they're never going to come and get a hair.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, did you just create something funny? Did you create something controversial? Did you create drama? Or is it something that maybe you get entertainment out of? I don't know. It's different reasons. Mm-hmm. But I think that is a different twist on today, and trying to break an algorithm and go viral is where do you want to be in all that, I think. So when we started, no one even thought about that. We were just doing what we like doing. That was that simple. And funny enough, a lot of us already had an educational background, so that helps. So we start doing, if a company calls, we can speak on stage. That's another thing. You can be great on social media, but if they put you in front of a stage in front of an audience, can you speak well? Can you educate without having your back turned to the audience so they don't know what you're doing? Right. It's presentation. There's all that stuff. I mean, I actually was trained like that early on. I didn't know why, because I didn't know when that would ever happen. But then I go, I've done this before. So it didn't feel so foreign, unnatural or anything. Right. So I have no problem getting up on stage. And don't get me wrong, I get the little, the little nerves, but that's great. That's because I'm excited. That's because I'm, we've done audiences of thousands. It's crazy. We've toured India and all over the world, and it's kind of crazy. So
yeah, it is crazy. I mean, that whole phenomenon, I think about it all the time. I mean, I have kids, I have a 19-year-old, I have a 36-year-old grown man up in Montana. I don't think about him in this regard as much because he's too old to really have an iPhone in his hand when he was 7 years old.
Right.
But my daughters did and do. And
how old are they now?
Well, 19 and 13.
Okay, gotcha.
And how old are your kids?
So my son is 13.
Okay.
And then I have a daughter, she's 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
They have iPhones.
Oh, yeah.
And they are on TikTok.
They can watch it. And I do check, at the end of the day. So my daughter's an artist. She loves drawing and this. And I'm sure weird things get in there. But she swears, she's like, I just watched the art. But, I kind of take her word for it. Now, I'm sure weird stuff gets in there. But, for now, she's 11. You got to take it for what it is. My son's more of not like me, but he's very into sports and just a jock. Mm-hmm. I mean, he loves football, wrestling, basketball. He's just that kid. Right. And all his buddies are the same. They're all into the sport. So he wake up and he want to go out. He doesn't care about that. I mean, he'll watch it, but he'll watch sports clips and this and that. So, but he's funny though. He will tell me when weird stuff pops up.
Okay.
And it does.
Yeah.
And he'll tell me, So, but it's like, I don't have him post stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just me though. But
yeah.
I don't know that there's a right or wrong out there. I just think you just got to monitor it the best you can.
Yeah. No, that worries me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even like the weirdo that shows up on there, which is a fear of mine with daughters. Some creep is on there pretending to be a kid and meet me Thursday at 7-Eleven.
Right. Your parents know about it. It's like, no, they don't. Yeah.
But that's one concern. But the bigger one is just watching their attention span, like And I don't want to say that's bad. I don't know if it's bad. I mean, we're moving into a new era of human civilization where we seem to be integrating with, at this point, AI even, and perhaps the mind of these youngsters needs to be different than our minds.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, entertainment was sitting with a pencil and paper for 5 hours, just in a quiet room, just entertaining myself by drawing things. So my ability, and not only that, but tattooing, right? To tattoo for 30 years, I have a very strong ability to just sit and focus on one thing and not be distracted by anything else, to concentrate and put my attention in one precise moment.
For hours.
And I see that just fading in these younger people because everything's happening. You flick. And it's just this video, that video, this. And that part does scare me. I'm like, what is that doing to the development of the mind, especially the creative aspect of the mind? Like for me, creativity is the ability to focus, to quiet yourself and to stay focused on a creative idea for a long enough period of time to get that from your brain onto if you're writing, written out, or if you're drawing, drawn out, or whatever. And, I haven't seen any real distinctive problems with my kids, but I think about it like, what kind of people will they be when they're 25?
Exactly.
But one thing's for sure, they're not going to be much different than anybody else because everyone is doing it.
Everyone does it. Yeah.
They're going to be, I don't know. I guess it's just, I never wanted to be the old man who's like, oh, this is bullshit. How it was when I was a kid was better, And I think a lot of old men do that, old women too.
Yeah.
But this is different. Times are changing and they're going somewhere that I don't know where it's going. So it's hard to say it's bad or good. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe it's part of our evolution into some new species that interacts with technology. And
maybe
beginning phases of it.
But what's interesting too is even when they get into their teens, you've got the, 15-second videos, blah, 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 blah. But then, podcasts are more popular than they've ever been. And those are an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that is with more adult, but it can start in the teens. There's teen podcasts as well. It's a good mixture. So it is going to be interesting to see if and how that affects people. But even in the adult world, like I have clients that are late 30s, 40s, single, and they're on the apps, and imagine how quickly you just dismiss someone, just nah, in 1 second. Maybe it's affecting everybody. I don't know, but it is interesting with the kids though, because they are developing still.
Yeah, I don't know, and you hit. Yeah, you're right. At the same time, there's this podcast thing happening,
right?
Long format. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, 3 hour. Shows,
3 hour.
And I love them.
I listen to it all too. That's the thing. Yeah, I'll listen to the whole 3 hours.
It's such a cool way to access long format conversations where a conversation can actually develop into some deeper water, because you're just not going to get that on TikTok. You're not going to get that on Instagram. You're not going to get that on CNN. It breaks my heart when you see these interviews with these important people that are running our country. And it's like, ask a question, answer, 2 questions, answer, boom, on to the next headline. It's like, we're not learning shit here. Like, how can anyone really explain what they're all about in those little brief moments? But then those same people on CNN go off and sit at Joe's show or, go to Brett Weinstein's show and spend 3 hours.
Right.
So it's almost like it's out there. You just have to go get it now. It's not going to be given to you.
Right. Well, what I do notice is if I'm FaceTiming the kids or I'm on the phone, I can tell automatically when I start talking or lecturing, they call it, they go, Dad, I don't want another. You know what I mean? When you lost them. Because I'll start telling, and then I hear myself, I go, oh God, now I sound like an old man. But sometimes you want to say it. I notice you lost them real quickly. Now, maybe that could be just being a kid, or that could be part of the flick. But I noticed this in person though, when I need to tell them something, they're not off. I'm looking them in the face, right in the eyes. Yeah. And so I think digitally, it's easy to dismiss things or change course. But so far I found if I'm right there and they're right there and I'm speaking to them, they got nowhere to go. I'm not going to let them go. Right. So it is interesting. So the attention span, if it's a device versus, and I would say they have more time with the device than they do with other people. I think it depending on who you are. Yeah. I am grateful that my kids are very social. My son more than my daughter, but she has her little friends that she does her things with. But yeah, he's always out and about, and probably getting into who knows what sports, but just
Still being a kid.
still being a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You should be grateful for that,
I
because
am.
not all kids are like that. Some are
Right.
just glued to that
Oh,
box in
gosh.
their hand. So yeah, I don't know. Stuff that's on my mind. I think about it, and you definitely think about it if you have kids nowadays.
100%.
Another thought I was, it's interesting to me, like what we do for people, right? What is it that we do for people? I've thought about it a lot, right? We help people, I guess you could say, express themselves. If it goes well, they probably even feel better about themselves. But it sort of ties itself into like our culture. And I guess it's maybe always been a little bit this way, but it seems to be on hyperdrive, which is image.
Yeah.
Everyone is so concerned, at least in the West. I mean, I know there's probably poor countries in the world where they haven't got the luxury to worry about how their hair looks when they get up in the morning, or what cool tattoo they're going to get in a month,
Right.
So I'm speaking to us Westerners that live in a very privileged society, and this obsession with our image. And hey, look, it's why I thrive in what I do, and you as well. So on one hand, it's really important, human expression. But on the other hand, it's so weirdly shallow and meaningless that I kind of laugh at it sometimes. Even
Right.
myself, I look at all these tattoos and I'm like, what am I trying to do?
Right. Right.
Do I have some kind of pit I'm trying to fill?
Mhm.
Like, am I not completely content with the way I was born? I've got to do this stuff. So what are your thoughts on that? Because you're in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in probably the most vain industry out there. One of them, anyways. I mean, I know there's plastic surgery and all, but I mean, the beauty industry, I
Right,
mean,
right.
people want to say one thing or another. I think in my experience, I've found that, in one hand, artists like myself, we love what we do because we get gratification for helping others feel good about themselves. Now, maybe it's just momentarily because hair eventually grows out, or hair eventually turns gray, or whatever the case may be. But in that moment, those are the moments we capture from appointment to appointment. Does it always go that way? No, but that's part of the business and experience. But when you step out and you kind of do a zoom lens, you're stepping way out and you really think about what life is really about and things of that nature. I think that happens the older we get.
Mhm.
But you're right. There's the who cares type thing,
Right. Right.
So sometimes, I do think about both sides as well. That's an interesting point.
It is. And in the end, I'm with you. Like, whatever, on the zoom out perspective, whatever. On the zoom in perspective, I know that I sit with somebody, we create art together, and I see the joy in their face. I see this like new them, they have this newfound confidence sometimes. It's very fulfilling. And
Yeah.
so, if I can do something that makes someone's life more fulfilled, then fuck, I'm stoked. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of jobs out there where you don't make anyone's life better. I mean, you get paid, but who's actually benefiting from what you're doing, So I'm grateful to be doing something that I can really see that it was a positive effect on everyone I
Yes.
touched. Not everyone, right? You have your exceptions, as
Right.
you've said. So I just go back to that.
Yeah.
I can't, but I do as I get older, and I look at this obsession with materialism, and it's always been there. I mean, hell, you can go back into the 17th century and they were putting on wigs and powdering their faces, and it's really no different, right? It's not like this is a brand new thing, but it does seem to be accelerated, like this obsession with material possessions, wealth, beauty. It's a little crazy.
It's a little crazy. And I know in the Western world it's gone through the roof, but even when you look throughout history, I mean, 99 point whatever % of human beings grow hair. It's just part of our body. Most of us have skin too, and if you look at even the non-developed world, braids and putting things in hair and just letting it dreadlock
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be, adornment of the human body has just been around for so long.
Mhm.
It obviously made them feel good or attracted by another, whatever
Right,
that
right.
might be. So there's another aspect to that as well.
It just seems to be human nature.
It seems to be.
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know?
we're the only animal doing it, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
that is true.
And from this desire also comes space travel and AI and maybe a cure for a specific cancer. Like, we seem to be insatiable in our exploration of reality. So in there is also self-expression. We change our bodies, we change our hair, we invent computers.
Yeah.
Where that takes us, I don't know. I mean, I personally think we seem to be a species that's destined to expand into the universe. And so one of those, our desire to constantly create and invent also means we get tattooed. It's funny to me sometimes when the non-tattooed, hair is different because no one's really going to judge you for the way they will, but in the end, we all get haircuts. Everybody out there gets a haircut.
Right.
So you can't separate yourself from the guy that gets a crazy haircut.
Right.
Because you get your haircut too.
Right.
But tattoos are different. Like you can not have tattoos and then you can look at the tattooed person and judge, And the funny thing to me is I say this to some of those people. It's like, oh, so, what's up with the tattoos? Why do you feel the need to do that? And I just look at their shoes. I'm like, why'd you pick black Nikes?
Yeah.
I mean, well, I needed shoes. Yeah, but there was also green Nikes and there was Adidas. Why the black Nike? I mean, to me, there's no different. We're all curating how we look to the world.
Yes.
Even in the smallest of ways or very extreme ways with piercings and tattoos. I just don't think you can separate the two. It's the same exact behavior expressing itself in really exotic ways or very conservative ways. It's the same behavior.
The same behavior. There's another thing. I think even in tattoos or hair or whatever you want, any outward expression of humans, there's a few different types. There's the ones that a type of, it's a lot of expression in of itself, outward expression, just in your appearance is such a powerful thing to a lot of people. But there's the ones who they kind of want to connect what they feel is what's in them and just kind of show it on the outside in whatever way. That's what expression is about. But there's the ones who really take some time to think about what that is, and they know what that is, and then they get that done for that moment in time. In hair, it might be that moment in time, because you look back, I'm sure if you look back 20 years, you might have had a different haircut or color or whatever, Although there are the ones who have had the same their whole life, but I'm not talking about that. But tattoos is a little different because, for the most part, once you get it, it's there.
Yeah.
You could cover it or whatever, I'm sure.
Or get laser removal.
Yeah. But more than none, that's something they know is going to be there for quite some time. You can't rub it off and all that sort of thing. So, but then there's the ones who just kind of, I'm feeling this today, and I'm going to cut all my hair off, or I'm going to tat my face today, but I'm 18 and I want to get a job. It's too impulsive. So I don't know that that's a true, you know what I mean? That might be something else. That might be an FU to this, whatever it represents.
Right.
And I think that people who aren't into getting non-conventional hair or tattooing in general, it's easy for them to kind of judge because I would never do that. That's so abominable, whatever it is. So I look at it in different ways like that.
It's also, I like to try to articulate, have conversations with those type of people because, what I see happening there kind of is the core problem of our species, right? The guy or girl that's judging someone for their wild haircut or the tattoo they got, that energy frequency is the core problem with our world, right? This idea that you should live the way I think you should live. What a weird thing.
Yeah, what a weird thing.
What a weird thing. Your haircut, your dreadlocks have no bearing on my life today.
Right.
So why would I give a fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
I look at them and I always, if they'll engage, I always kind of try to drag them where we're going right now. Like, explain that to me, and that's something we need to get over as a species. We really do. So. We got to let people live their life as they see fit. The only rule is don't hurt others.
Yeah.
That's the only rule.
That's it.
After that, you can do whatever you want. This leads into all the talk about transgender and gay and straight and bisexual. I love the novelty of life.
Right.
Like, that's the other weird part of it with those people that are in that space of judging the other in that way. I always there was an old Twilight Zone episode. I can't remember how it was a guy that was doing this in the episode. And he goes to bed one night and he wakes up and everybody's hit just like him. They're not like twins of him, but they all dress very similar to him.
Same.
Their wives look the same. And he basically goes crazy because what he realizes in that moment is the beauty of life is the variety of walking out your door and seeing some purple mohawk guy walk by you. How cool is that? How interesting is that? How entertaining is that? Like, bring it. Like, let's just see how colorful we can make the world. It's fine. But I do, back to my point, like that's, talking about this and having that conversation because we really as a species need to be much more tolerant of one another. And again, the
I
rule
think
is simple. Just don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Don't lie to people. Don't steal. You don't do any of those things, you're good in my book.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the thing about this movement that's happening right now. There's so much heated debate around the subject of trans and all this stuff. And I believe it's just the pendulum swinging in the direction we ultimately need to go, which is, you know, and sometimes I think that that issue is pushed harder than maybe it needs to be. But also, how do you get people to snap out of it, right? It's almost like it has to be extreme for a while before everyone just drops it and starts going, hey, man, whatever. You do you.
Yeah.
I'm good with anything you want to do. And I think that pendulum, that's where we're going. That's why I like the debate that's happening. And it's a little ugly at times. But I do think we have to go through this phase to the next level where we just accept human beings for what they are.
I think so, because the trouble that comes of all this is, I think, the absolute extremes of whatever side or whatever you want to look at or belief is what gets crazy with some people. You know what I mean? Because if you just, again, if you zoom out a little bit and you realize we're all people, nobody wants to, well, aside from the psychos, but I mean, nobody wants to harm someone on purpose. You know, they're just doing what they think is right. And as long as it's not, you know, societally hurting someone on purpose, then who cares?
Right.
You know, just let people be. That's
pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
It's a little shocking for me to see so much argument about it. I'm like, is it really this complicated?
It's very bizarre. I mean, look, we grew up in the 80s and 90s. There was all that back then too, but it wasn't that. I feel like it wasn't that much of a big deal as it is now, which is bizarre because it's many decades later.
It's true. And, you know, because earlier I was saying, like, I look at my own body covered in tattoos, and I remember me as a youngster with a purple crown. I had a purple crown. You know, crowns are.
Right.
Yeah, the old London hardcore scene. And you know, on reflection, I look back and I kind of realized what I was trying to make that point, really, is what I was doing. I was being extreme to the point to shove that issue into people's faces. And then being a kind of guy that lived really moralistically correct, so I could prove them wrong, basically. Right. Like, yeah, you're thinking I'm something because I'm covered in tattoos and I might have different hair. But if you, and some of them never do, but if you get to know me, you're going to find out you were wrong about me.
Right.
You know, so it's sort of dismantling this frequency, this idea in certain cultures that we need to shut that down.
Right. The stereotypes.
The stereotypes, exactly. And I think if I had to pinpoint the main reason I became a tattooer, got heavily tattooed, I think it was for that reason. I just wanted to contribute towards the dismantling of this backwards philosophy that we all should fall in line into a certain, you know, living a certain way.
Oh, 100%. I remember when I was in the computer industry at the time, actually computer manufacturing. We're on a line building computers and all this during the dot-com boom and all this sort of thing. And I remember working with someone and he was like, I started working on my sleeve. I think I was 19 or something. And he was like, what are you doing, man? He goes, dude, who do you think you are? You're a kid. He goes, you got to be smart like me. You got to climb that corporate ladder. Do you want to be something like, do you even think about your future? You're never going to get a real job looking like that, man. I mean, he was speaking so passionately to me. And I just thought, man, he's real hardcore right now. Like, he's preaching it, you know? And I was like, well, interesting, you know? And I go, hey, man, this is just, you know, what I like. He goes, man, one day you're going to grow up. I hope it's sooner than later. Because who knows? You might start tatting everything up. And next thing you know, what are you going to do? End up on the street? And I'll never forget that, because that also helped fuel me to, you think you know by looking at me, but you don't. You know what I mean? And so I share that same, you know.
I think, you know, a big portion of my success economically was driven. It's not a good source of power, really.
Right. But it worked.
It was driven from that. It was like, well, shit, I've covered myself in tattoos. Now I really have to have a successful life, or they're going to be right.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
To my family, to my neighbors, to anyone around me. It was like, I'm really going to make sure I'm successful now.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think both of us kind of understood where culture was going. I know I did. I had an intuitive, like, this is not going to be that guy is telling you you're not going to be able to have any financial success by getting sleeves, was wildly unaware of what future was coming.
Right.
Because we all know now you can do not anything. There's still realms that wouldn't welcome you.
Right.
But there's plenty of places you can go where, hell, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, in your realm.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the tattoos and all this is probably good for business.
It's great.
Obviously in my world being tattooed, I'm a
Right.
tattoo artist, but there's a lot of places now where that's an advantage. So they were wrong. The world was changing and they couldn't see beyond the horizon of where that was going. And then compassion towards them is another thing I would always try to bring into it. They just don't see it, and in that guy's world, what he understood was it was going to fuck up your life and he cared about you.
Right.
That's a guy just trying to care about you.
Yeah.
Very misplaced.
In his own way. Yeah.
That was kind of like love. you know? So I try to remember that too. I don't, nowadays I don't get any of that, especially where I'm at with what I do. And no one even questions me in that way. Maybe secretly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But back when they were doing that, I remember just thinking thoughts of like forgiveness and compassion. Like I get what you're doing. Thank you. But I'm going to do this anyway. And we'll see how this shakes out, Very cool. Well, the other thing is, one thing I've still struggle with is, here I own 3 companies now. I have 2 tattoo shops, 22 tattoo artists. I've got children. I've got my own career. I've got this show. And I want to be physically healthy. I want to have good relationships. Like, it's a difficult thing to go out and really drive hard in your craft or your career and still maintain a healthy relationships and physical health. So let me ask you a little bit about that. Like,
Sure.
You're a healthy guy. You've got these kids. You've got loving relationships in your life. You've been with your girl for 8 years. Beautiful relationship there. How did you manage all that?
It wasn't easy. I'll tell you that true. I have to say it's actually, it continues to be a learning process. It has been a learning process. I'm grateful that, Lord knows I've done a lot of damage to myself over the years, but eventually I got over that. And there's many parts here. So let's talk about the balancing life thing as with relationship and being a parent and all that. I mean, I'm still learning, to be honest with you. And especially as they evolve into teens and the older, it's like, wow. But those early years were it was almost like you're not getting much sleep. You're just trying to make sure you can pay for the normal things. And you're like, I just bought a box of diapers though, that type of thing. And then it kind of evolves out, but because that's more baby stage, and then that's toddler stage, and that's this. But I think now they're a little bit more self-sufficient. They go to school, they do their thing, and we talk every day.
Do you have a day of the week that's sacred, like Sundays?
Oh, Sundays. Yeah.
It is.
It's Sundays. We definitely will.
You put the phone down.
Yeah.
It's family day.
It's family day, But otherwise, they're busy doing my daughter's doing gymnastics or art. My son's off on whatever sports camp he's doing at the time, and I love it. Go do that. Of course, I'll go to the games and all that when I can make it. And then, home relationship. I think sometimes everyone's just on the grind. It becomes what do you call that?
Hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's just the same, So to kind of break it up, we'll do date night and things of that nature.
I was going to ask you about that. Me and my wife are pretty strict about date night.
Yeah.
Our goal is once a week. Sometimes we'll get 2. Sometimes we'll have a week where we don't get one. You know, she also runs a med spa, a natural healing facility. So she's a busy woman, but we still, on average, we get that. I have a date night tonight after, this show.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm looking forwed to it. So you do that. You prioritize.
Yeah, we do. We try our best. It doesn't always work out because, Danny, she has late stage chronic Lyme disease, meaning Lyme disease, and she's never going to get cured of it, but there's ways to deal with it. And some moments get worse than others. So a lot of things are unpredictable, but we try to plan it. If it doesn't work out, we'll eat at home, Right. Actually, I love grilling.
Okay.
I'm a meat guy, and I just love grilling. It's just one of those things. And, we moved away from LA County, believe it or not, about almost 2 years ago now. And so we got a house and all this stuff. So I got my backyard, my grill. I just like doing it. It's just one of those things. So, and speaking of the health stuff, trying to, do all that. It's funny because recently, I would say within the last year or so, I made a huge change in my diet. I was always felt like I was relatively healthy, and I would go, well, I'm pretty healthy. You know what I mean? I never got to a point like obese or anything like that, but I just felt bloated or something, and I always had shoulder pain and back pains and stuff and knee pains. And I started thinking, well, is that just me getting older, or what is it? Because I do work quite a bit. I'm on my feet a lot. So I'm thinking, what is this? But Danny being on very strict with her diet and everything because of her, well, and Lyme is the base of her illness, but then along comes with it all these other bizarre infections like Babesia and Bartonella, which are other things that come with Lyme, or it can come with Lyme, so everybody's different. Like if you and I both had Lyme, we'd both be different. Like the way we would suffer
How
from
it expresses itself is different.
It's
in
different
each
in
person.
everybody. So that's why it's so hard. And actually, CDC didn't recognize Lyme or chronic Lyme as even being real until recently, which means you get no health care for it. You can't get insurance for it. You know what I mean?
You got to take care of it on your own.
On your own. And even doctors couldn't say, oh, I'm a Lyme doctor, because they go, but that's not real. So they would take licenses.
That's crazy. I mean,
weird.
I don't know much about Lyme's disease, but I remember hearing about it at least 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just recently got...
It's starting to, right. Because more and more celebrities are now
How do
coming
you get Lyme's? Is it...
So it can happen from a tick.
Okay.
And the funny thing is her doctor said she probably got bit. Believe it or not, so many people walk around with it, but it's probably not going to affect them. It just stays dormant and it may never wake up. Because how many kids have been bit by ticks? Probably many. And so what it does is around her early 30s, she started having thyroid issues, and that runs in the family. And that, they say, woke it up, and she had no idea what the heck that was. I mean, Lyme disease, because the doctor was like, okay, we checked your blood. Listen, are you sitting? I need to tell you something. And she's thinking, oh, God, what is it? And she goes, oh, okay, so what does that mean? What do I have to take? He goes, I don't think you understand what I'm talking about here. So it's been years now. I think 5 years, 4 years. And it's been a battle. I mean, she got to a point where she had to be in a wheelchair and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's on and off, but she can definitely walk around and stuff like that. But I've seen things with her that it's brutal, just.
And so a lot of her way of managing this is through diet?
One of the ways is diet, yes.
Let's just, before we get beyond that,
sure.
What kind of diet are we talking that is helpful for her?
So this is another thing on the side of it. Apparently before that, she had a history of having to take a lot of antibiotics throughout her life. And that kind of messed up her microbiome, like bad. So along came with that many issues on top of that. I particularly myself it was in my early 30s, ulcerative colitis. So then I had to chill on certain things like spicy things or actually I haven't had coffee in 14 years. This is tea. Yeah. But, so she started learning more about it, but I'm busy working, you know what I mean? And she would tell me things. And then finally, like I said, last year, I said, okay, enough is enough. I got to try this. And I swear I wasn't one of those before. But now that I've done more research and I'm discovering more things and I've actually tested it on myself, things like seed oils, cutting out just processed sugar. It's very difficult, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's got sugar or high fructose corn syrup or whatever the case may be. And then if you look at food now, I mean, nothing's good for you, really. I mean, it's very rare. But I am to the point now where I order my meats. We go to the farmer's market and get the organic, produce and things of that nature. And it has made quite a difference. I have to say, just in my energy levels, I don't have the joint pains that I used to have constantly. I even started, hitting the gym a couple of days a week again because I just thought, why not? Let's see what happens. I actually stopped because my joints were so bad. And now they're better. I mean, that's kind of crazy. So
inflammation, the source of all disease, they say.
Yeah.
Right?
Even my face got it looked bloated, but like the sides of my face were wide. And I go, is that bone? What is that? I started looking. I was like, what happened? And so.
You were inflamed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rabbit hole of diet, right? And there's a huge debate around that too. Even with the people that are deep down that rabbit hole. You've got these guys over here, man, you should never touch meat.
Right.
In fact, I'm having James Wilkes on the show. Looks like a month or so from now. I don't know if you know who he is, but he is the creator of Game Changers. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary. It's probably one of the most powerful documentaries proving or championing. You don't know.
Yeah. Championing? Yeah.
Championing.
Yeah.
Vegetable forward eating,
right.
Plant forward eating. He wouldn't go as far as to say vegan, but just like, look, we shouldn't be eating meat.
Right.
Meats are inflammatory. Very convincing documentary. I mean, God, I watched it. I was like, I think I'm going to do this. But then you go to the other side and you've got these carnivore guys.
Carnivore guys.
That are like doing their lab tests and they're showing you, you're never going to get these types of vitamins from vegetables. You're never going to get this. So I don't know the answer. I really don't. But in my life, the thing I've done and the thing I tell people that are trying to figure this out, I'm just like, look, don't eat processed foods.
Yeah.
If it's got a fucking label on it, don't eat it. It's that fucking simple. I mean, the things we should be eating there's no label on a head of broccoli. You know what I mean? Saying this is what's in your broccoli,
Right.
all the preservatives and whatnot. There's no label on a piece of fish or a piece of chicken. Just eat whole foods. Start there.
Yeah, start there.
Start there. And then, of course, processed sugars or sugar in general, you know?
Listen, when it says bioengineered on the side of the box,
Right.
that ain't real food, you know? So
Yeah.
it's so bad. I didn't know how bad it really was until I started doing more research and things like that. I've been telling my kids too, I go, look, you know, you got to, but that's another thing. Kids just eat anything and they're okay for a while, but then I go, it's going to catch up.
Yeah, they don't
You
feel
know?
the effects when they're young.
Yeah,
right?
not when they're young until
No.
later, but
But they'll, you know, we've been very strict in our kids. What's in my house? Like, good luck trying to find junk food.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not there.
it's not there.
But
Nope.
they go to their friends' houses.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some of these people they hang out at, I mean, literally you open their cupboard and they just have unlimited, you know, candy and, you know, hostess treats and all this. And the kids
Right.
can eat as much as they want, you know, and they'll go there and they'll have their little parties or whatever they do. But my 19-year-old, you know, man, the fights we had with food at my house, it was just, I almost gave up. I was just
Right.
like, fuck it. Go get a McDonald's. I don't even care. I'm just sick of the crying and the yelling, you know?
Yeah.
But now she's 19 and man, that kid will not touch that shit. She thanks us every day for being that way with her, you know?
Good.
Thank you for not allowing me to be a dumbass kid and eat that bullshit,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you know, in today's world, it's almost impossible to eliminate all of it, but we can do our part and significantly lessen the amount of that we eat. And I think that's about as good as we can do. You know, I mean, not everyone obviously has the means or access to be ordering all this and all that, but just even if you cut half of that stuff, I mean, it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize how much until I did it on myself. And I don't have the answers. I just know what works on me. And again, every body is different because this body may react to great with vegetables. Awesome.
Right.
Don't eat meat then.
Right.
This person, what's that guy, Jordan Peterson? He just eats meat and man, he's slimmed down. He doesn't have, you know, so everybody, you just got to find your thing, even though some things are generally right, like the processed sugars for sure
Right.
are horrible.
Both sides know that.
Both sides know that. Yeah. So I think just find what works for you.
You know,
Experiment.
like everything, I bet you it's in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I don't know. But, you know, with my wife at that health spa, I'm at home and that's all she's researched. So I hear a lot of anecdotal stuff through her. So I'm listening, but I don't know. But it doesn't have to be, it just seems so black and white.
Yeah.
You know, the carnivore, just eat beef liver.
Right.
I've eaten beef liver for 40 days straight. That's it. Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm yoked,
Oh,
you know.
Yeah. It's
You know,
like,
I'm
dude,
like,
you gotta, you know.
That's I don't know, man. I don't know. Are we
about
meant to
that.
survive on beef liver? I don't
Yeah.
know. And then this guy, I haven't touched, I'll eat his vegetables for the last 5 years. That seems extreme too.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I just end up in the middle. I eat a lot of meat, a lot of fish, a lot of eggs, a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
And I stay away from that processed shit.
Yeah.
And the one bad thing is I drink wine,
Right.
which probably shouldn't do that, but it can't be perfect.
Nah, you can't be, like I said, you gotta have your thing, you know?
And it's important. I mean, to be out there winning in life, if you ain't feeling good, you're not going to get very far.
Exactly.
And I've seen that happen with a lot of my peers where just so talented and so hardworking and doing it all, but their bodies broke down and it's not going so good for them now.
Right.
So you got to take care of all those sides. You got to take care of your date night. You know, if you got to go through a divorce in 5 years, all that money you made, half of it's gone. And not to mention the headache and the stress and everything else that's going to happen to your family, you know?
Exactly.
So keeping it all in balance, you know, so that you can make it to the finish line.
Well, this is how I look at it too. A lot of people go, man, that's so expensive though. I go, okay. Well, what about that medical bill you're going to get in about 10 years and it's in the hundreds of thousands? You're going to pay for it either way. You might as well, you know.
I hate that one
You
because
know what
I
I
get
mean?
that one too.
Yeah.
Like, because I order my meat. They're just
Right.
like, oh,
Me
yeah.
too. I mean,
yeah, you can afford to do that. And I'm like, how many TVs do you have in your house? Like,
Right.
you know, let me see your wardrobe.
yeah.
Hell, let's look what you're wearing right now. How much you pay for that watch?
Yeah.
Like, here are these people driving nice cars, wearing jewelry. They've got 4 flat screen. You know, what's more important
What
with
are
your
you
money?
prioritizing?
Right.
Exactly.
Food first. I'd rather live in a shitty house with no televisions and drive a used car, but be eating great food. So I don't buy that one. I mean, yeah, that does apply for some people. There are people who really can't afford that kind of food, and the processed diet's cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to KFC and for $15 feed a family of 4.
Exactly.
$15.
15 bucks.
Right. And that's sad because
it's horrible.
I think for some people, that's just the way it is to survive. They eat that shit. But, a lot of these folks, they're just not prioritizing.
Exactly.
They're going to get the fucking Gucci wallet, but they're going to bitch about how much grass-fed steaks are.
Exactly. It's where your priorities at, I want to say one more thing too is about, it kind of reminds me of this, is when this is one thing I really admired about you even early on. I mean, obviously, aside from your artistry and your creative mind and all of that stuff, when I first came to you in Pacific Beach and you were talking about, buying out your partner at the time and then buying the building and all this stuff. And I thought, man, this guy, you know what I mean? And it's, you weren't out driving a G-Wagon or anything, even though you probably could afford it then, but you were just, no, I got a Toyota truck and this, and I'm trying to build this thing. And of course, years later, you got different locations and you got all this sort of thing and your reputation stayed great. And I've always looked up to that, And one thing I think that is so sad is the lack of financial education. This affects from kids to even adults because it's not even discussed at all.
No, they're going to teach you math and reading and history, but they're going to teach you how to manage your money.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That falls onto the family.
Yes.
And I didn't really have that. I mean, they did their best, but I didn't have a wealthy family that sat me down and taught me, you got to put a certain amount into your 401k, son, and here's your retirement fund, and you need a wealth manager. And
right. All this stuff. I'm like, what? Yeah. So it's just, that's why I really appreciate, and you got to be careful. I mean, tread lightly, but there's free education out there, free basic education out, YouTube, university, I call it, because, then once you actually do reach out to certain people, I used to think, a financial advisor, you need to be rich for that sort of thing, but you don't. But nobody tells you that.
No.
They put all these graphs and they talk about the Schwabs and the JP Morgans of the world. And you just think, but that's not me. I'm just a regular guy working 9 to 5 or whatever. I don't have millions or whatever. But I don't know. I think if that's someone's thinking about and maybe you got a new kid on the way or something, I mean, start now. I mean, just the idea of compound interest alone, I think slips people's heads. They don't understand how powerful that can be. Yeah. I wish I started earlier, but I mean, it's never too late. It's better to start later than never. I
didn't have anyone teaching me that when I was young. I mean, I did. My father, when I was in like the 7th grade, put me through, it was called PSI seminars. It was, before what's that book? All these books about manifesting.
Right.
The Secret. It was principles like they taught in that book in a seminar that my dad had gone to, and he put me through it, and I was all pissed off about it, like making me go to this on my weekend. My friends are out doing their thing, and I'm sitting in a seminar with 30-year-old men being taught this stuff, and I did it, and I learned things in there I didn't even realize I learned, and I've been applying a lot of those principles to my life ever since, and thanks, Dad, because that's a huge part of where I made a shift in that. Shifts are funny because you might turn, it's just like walking a long road. You might turn 2 degrees to the right, but in a year, you're not in a very different position than the guy that didn't turn 2 degrees. But if you follow that V pattern long enough, 20 years later, we're in wildly different locations.
Yes.
And I know now that small pivot made a big difference. But the other thing that my dad always told me was ask questions with the people that have what you want. If you're asking about problems in your marriage, make sure you're talking to somebody that you think has a very healthy, loving relationship. If you're asking somebody about money or investments, make sure they're wealthy. So I kind of took that to heart. And I was lucky tattooing all these people all these years. And I had every kind of person come through my booth. And they were stuck with me for hours. And I would always identify, what is this person really good at? Some were really good at fitness. Great. What are you doing? What are you eating? How do you work out? This guy's, got this obviously vibrant, loving marriage. Like, how do you do dating? Oh, look at this guy with all this money. Like, what? So I would just keep just asking questions to the people that had and some of it might not have been true, might have been a lie. Maybe they were just putting up a good front. But over a long period of time, asking enough people that had what I wanted, some common denominators kept showing up. Like, that's the fifth guy that told me I need a financial advisor.
Yeah.
I think I need a
I
financial
think I need a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy that you say that because I'm grateful also for what I do because all the different types of people that come in, it's the same. I've learned from my clients so much.
Yeah.
It's over the years, and now it's been decades, but it's like, wow, it's powerful conversations like that we got for free.
Yeah. No,
Actually, they paid us.
yeah.
You know what I mean? They paid us. So I think that using that, and again, that's a resource that we don't really think about it, but yeah, so.
Very true. Well, we're going to tattoo today.
Yeah.
As I said earlier on the show, I did Philip's ribs. Then I did his whole back. Did I do your neck? No.
No, I had little pieces and you
Brought
blended it all together and then you added this little piece in the middle, but it was just kind of blotchy and then you made it kind of.
The piece on your throat.
Yeah. And then you
The
added.
Tibetan skull? Is that what I was
Yeah, the Tibetan skull and you filled in, you blended it in with the chest pieces and then a little script there or whatever, but yeah.
Well, after all of this happening, Philip got left with a little gap.
Yeah.
And you're going to fill all those gaps, aren't
I'm
you?
filling in the gap.
So right at the top of your back, right where your neck hits your hairline, there's this little gap. We're going to fill that today. I was saying earlier, it's kind of like the cherry on top of your back piece sundae.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. The cherry
Which
on
is,
top.
it's cool because we've had this journey with you has been beautiful and enlightening and just a highlight of my career. So to have this today on Chats and Tats, to see you again after a number of years and be able to put that last piece on you, I'm honored to do so. So we're going to probably shift gears here, everybody. We're going to move over to the other side of the Chats and Tats room and we're going to do a tattoo. After that, we'll sit back down and have a few words about the tattoo experience and go from there.
Sounds good. Tat time.
All right, buddy. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. And we're back.
All right.
Yeah, for all of you guys out there watching the show, that was 2 seconds for us. I don't know, 45 minutes of tattooing?
Something like
maybe
that.
Maybe an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I want to propose a toast. We got a couple shots of Chamuco's tequila here, Reposado, or is that the Añejo? Oh, the Añejo. Chamuco's. You got to check it out. But I'll propose this toast. This is a toast to you, my friend. This is a toast to all the beautiful relationships that come from what I do, what you do. It's also a toast to, we put the cherry on top of your back piece today, kind of the end of that journey. We might tattoo again. That really is kind of the end of this back, neck journey we had together. So cheers to all that.
Cheers. It's been a pleasure.
Sounds good, brother. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let me get this microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God damn it.
Here we go.
So before we close this out, you haven't been tattooed very much in the last 3 years. How was
No.
that? Just like you remember?
Oh, just like I remember that first second, and it all comes back real quick.
You're 47?
7, yeah.
Okay. So we started tattooing 17 years ago. I don't know, help me out with the math here. Like you're late 20s.
Right.
And you were a tough client. I remember all my clients. You sat like a champ. And I have to ask you this because I hear this from everybody. The older we get, the harder it is to get tattooed.
Oh, and
is that true
the
today?
Truth? That is the truth.
Because that was a 45-minute tattoo.
Yeah.
And you did it.
Yeah.
But you were also like, fuck.
And I was thinking to myself, man, I sat hours before.
That's
Because
my
we've
point.
had major hours in a day before.
Oh, yeah. 6,
Yeah.
7 hours
Yep.
on your ribs.
Yep.
And now just that is like, ugh.
Just that is like the friendly reminder of, uh-oh.
For those of you listening, it does not get easier the older you get. And I don't think that's your body. Might be a little bit your body. Maybe you're just, physically you lose a little strength. But we just get used to our comforts as we get older. And we don't like being uncomfortable the older we get.
No.
At least I don't.
I don't either,
Well, who knows? I mean, your upper body is, I don't see a gap on you anymore, dude. So maybe one day those legs get tattooed. Maybe they don't. But if they don't, that's great. And it's just nice to finish this off today with you.
No, it's been awesome and so many years. And what a way to close it out like that.
Let me ask you 2 questions. What's for Philip Wolff? Got any big plans or just keep doing what you're doing?
I'm that's a good question. I am continuing to do what I do, but there are some new things in the horizons that are, some are we'll see how it goes.
Right.
And some I can't really say yet, but if you follow me on the social, you'll find out. But it's all exciting stuff having to do with just my involvement in the industry and things of that nature. And some things are a little bit behind the scenes and creating things for brands and stuff. So it's very exciting for me.
Right.
Not always just being the front part, but it's kind of cool because
What if somebody wants to get their hair done by you? Can that still happen?
yeah, it can still happen. I'm not behind the chair a lot as much as I used to, but I still love it and I still want to do it. So, if that's the case, then they can find me on Booksy.
Okay.
Or usually it gets booked up. So, because I do kind of like how you used to do, we just do a couple months at a time and then reopen.
Right.
But you can always email
Okay.
mgmt@philipwolffhair.com.
And people can find you the same way, or Instagram is the best way?
Instagram. I am on the TikTok too, here and there. Just at Philip Wolff Hair.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. It's been an honor tattooing you all these years, all these hours together. Thank you, my friend.
Yes.
I mean, I often think about it like how blessed I am and how much I love doing this. And I'm just so grateful there's people out here who want tattoos.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, because everywhere I go, people are always asking. And anytime I'm at a shop and they kind of go, oh, wait, do you have that bag piece? And then I show them and they're like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah. So you're like, everybody knows you out there. It's
Wow.
pretty cool.
thank you for that compliment.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all the love and the DMs I've been getting. Keep those coming. Please share the show with some friends. We're still young. We're still growing. All that shit helps. And until the next one, peace, love, and prosperity to all of you. Take it easy.
Chats and Tats with Aaron Della Vedova.